Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the LCS report. I'm Rob. He's Nick, and we start off the day with the age-old question. Nick, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing pretty well. Doing pretty well. How about yourself, boss?
Oh, doing good, dude. Tired. We've both had long weeks, but we're really excited to record this episode for one particular reason. You see it up here on the screen already, via Travis Gafford. The rumors of there being best of threes. Can't believe it. Very excited. As you know, Nick and I have been calling for it. I know that Gafford doesn't really like it all that much, and we'll kind of discuss some of the pitfalls of it on this as well. This is going to be our deep dive episode into best of threes. We were probably going to do it anyways, to be honest with you, but the fact that this news came out is even better. To be clear, before we start, this is technically rumored. But considering Travis Gafford is basically best friends with Mark Zimmerman, I would have to think that this is probably happening. I have to think that this may have even intentionally been leaked, to be honest with you, to get fan sentiment. They still have plenty of time before the summer starts. The funny thing is, there's actually, if you look down here, I'm going to use my mouse. If you look down here, I'll bring up this picture. Apparently, even at the beginning of the year, this was potentially planned, as it was in the rule book already that it would be happening. There will be another 2-week break for the Esports World Cup, which is also interesting. I will get into that, I think, maybe another day, to be honest with you. Maybe over that time period, we'll
That's
discuss it.
another that's
Um,
another topic for another day for sure.
for
Lots to
sure.
get into there. But
Yeah, yeah.
what's
But
relevant now is that there will be another 2-week break, like the Valorant break that we had in spring, right?
yeah, which is unfortunate. It is what it is, but we're not too focused on that right now. It's going to be on best of threes. Nick, officially, and I want to get your thoughts on this. Officially, it is each team will play another team once in a best of 3 format. Now, what I don't know for sure, because I haven't been able to tell, is whether or not it's going to be that all 3 games will be played no matter what, or if it's going to be just if the team wins the first 2. Because that, to me, is a drastic difference. A very big difference, to be clear, in terms of what's happening. Because if it's truly that you only play the first 2 games guaranteed, then all they did essentially was just make it so that instead of playing each other 2 times, across different weeks of the split, you're just playing twice in one day and that's it. So I want to
Right.
get your thoughts on it. Where are you at with this, Nick? I've talked enough at this point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a step up no matter what, but I think it's important to address some of the different contexts, having the single round robin
Mhm.
uh eliminates one of the benefits of the best of 3 format, in my opinion, which is the
Yes.
more games. This is like you said, if it's going to be 2-0s, it's going to be the same amount of games. And even with 3-0s, like let's say every series goes 3 games, we're still looking at 21 games. A 50% increase is significant, sure, but 21 games still isn't a lot in context of like the sample
No.
size of the games that an LPL or LCK team plays in the same period of time, for example, right? That being said, even if it's just a single round robin, I still think it's a step up. I think that while, yeah, a 2-0 could be the same amount of games, having it actually be a series, one, teams can learn more from an adjustment of, like it sometimes not it doesn't bother me, but like I think sometimes we focus a lot on like head to heads across like week 3 and or like week 2 and week 4 of LCS. And it's like it was like one game each on different patches. Like it means nothing. Like whereas at least this, while only one round robin, that's like not a ton of data. At least like I feel like that data, because it's part of a series, is still more reliable. We get to see how teams adapt immediately in a situation if they're bested or if they're thrown for a loop. And I also think there's that would mean that we're gonna have really like it's gonna be VCT America's style, or I think VCT style in general, where a team plays a game a week. It's a best of 3 game, and I don't super hate that because I feel like best of ones can be kind of coin flipping. It's like let's hope we have good practice and hope that practice shows up. Whereas
Mhm.
this is like a team can actually prepare for their opponent. I feel like there's more strategic nuance. So even though I would like more games, I do think that this is still definitely a step in the right direction. Even if it doesn't check all the boxes of like having a double round robin best of three, single round robin best of three is still better than double round robin best of one, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. It's definitely a step in the right direction. And I think it's almost a testing ground for them, to be honest with you, because we are going to really see how much viewership is affected by certain teams, right? If Cloud9 is only playing on, Saturday, um, and we just have a huge viewership spike on Saturday during their two games, then that's gonna tell the LCS a lot about what they need to do. In my opinion, that's why they should have two best of threes, because then you're not really losing that. But whatever, right? That's another conversation for another day. Um, I think that I'm not going to try to complain too much. It's not the way that I think either of us would have preferred for this to be. The most important thing to
No,
me
it's no.
is that it has to be all three games. Otherwise, I will be upset. Like it's just they need these games. I don't care if Cloud9 just beats the shit out of Immortals 3 times in a row. That is still information that they can use to get better. Period. Right? Like it doesn't matter. And that's just more everything in my opinion, to be honest with you.
Right.
And it's like, you know, what is the difference at that point of it being 4 games guaranteed or 6 games guaranteed? Like if there's 2 extra games a day, who cares? And I think I saw Kelsey Moser specifically talked about the fact that like, this means that the drafting ahead of time is going to be taken away. Well, we can still do the first games drafted offline like before they get back, right? So I don't think that that's a problem personally. Like if you have it if you had the pre-draft before they get into games, then that's great. What I will say is I don't really understand, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe I'm remembering this incorrectly. Is there really a difference if they're still showing us the draft? Like technically all it's doing is taking out the potential for there to be a pause, I guess, or it like gives a little extra time for that, but in all reality, like is that really saving us that much time? So like if that's the argument for, well, maybe this is kind of defeating that purpose. If we're saving like 10 minutes, who cares? You know what I mean? Like I just don't I'd rather have best of threes. Like and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I have another point, but I'll wait. So I want to get your thoughts on
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I don't know the exact logistics of how we're doing pre-recorded best of threes. What I do know is that yeah, it eliminates the deliberation of picks taking a little longer on stage. It eliminates potential technical errors that would happen in Champion Select. And it does ultimately, because there's less discussion required for that draft one game, like that is why games start quicker. Teams need less time, right?
Okay.
And yeah, you're not going to be able to pre-record a game two draft because game one just happened. But I mean, okay, like that's fine. I don't know. Like we had like if we had to if we're picking between best of three and pre-recorded draft, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious which one is more important.
Sure.
And like you said, I don't think there's any reason why we can't still do game one pre-recorded drafts. Again, I maybe there is a reason that I'm not thinking of. I've never worked on the broadcast, or I don't really know exactly how they coordinate that with teams and if that would change in any way. But I also think you could argue that any time be made up by the fact that teams are going to only have to prep for one opponent a week. That's a lot of prep
That's
time.
that's
Like
good.
we used to two opponents, or it's we went super weeks, three opponents in one week. That's like you can really study your one opponent, and I wouldn't be surprised if even if you can't pre-record drafts, teams are going to come in with like, okay, here's our like we have two like our A comp, our B comp, our C comp against this team. So I think like that will make up for the time, and even if it doesn't, like I said, I'm here for the I think quality of gameplay over everything. I don't think we have to worry about the broadcast being fast if our region was better. So while I do think it is while I do think it is the right choice, ultimately I'm willing to make I'm in favor of small changes that maybe lengthen elongate the broadcast a bit again, if it means accommodating for the logistics of a best of three series. And to your point about, I mean, this is just about the language, right? when when the Giants come to Cincinnati to play the Reds for 3 games, we don't call it a best of three. We call it a 3-game series because, like you said,
Exactly.
no matter what the games happen, the language implies to me that we're looking at if it's 2-0, it's a 2-0.
Yeah.
And I see what you're saying. You're saying I'd like to see a 3-game series regardless of record, and we can figure out how points would work in the standings later, like kind of how they did best of twos in LPL for a while and in Europe for a while, where those matches where it's like it's already been decided, but or like oh split 1-1, it's no definitive win, but there's still a amount of point. There's a way for it to work for sure, but I doubt it. I doubt it. Right? I really do think it's going to still. I think it's just going to be best of threes. And again, not ideal with just a single round robin, but I honestly just think anything's an upgrade over best of one. So I think your criticism, your critiques, and your concerns are very valid. This is basically like I feel like we're getting best of three in like the most like crunchitized way possible, and I'm glad we're getting it. But yeah, there's definitely going to be some growing pains and certain things that could be better by adding those more games. We didn't really add a lot of quantity of games, so I think we're going to get a better idea of how teams adapt, and I think the actual relative strength of teams on the day and what that actually means. But I don't know how much this contributes to the betterment of the region compared to say playing a double round robin of best of threes. I think it's still better. Undeniably, it's still better. But I think we're going to see a more accurate read on teams for what they are, but not necessarily the regional growth that we've talked about of how much best of threes would help. Because like you said, we're not actually drastically increasing the number of games, more so the order in which they're played for a more quality match on the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's like on average, we're probably going to get like maybe two more games a week at best, which is it is what it is. I do real quickly
I
want to.
mean, I just love serious play, so I'm still happy,
I
like,
just
because I really think like we'll
I
be able
just
to see some
worry
things
though.
about these teams that we don't know.
I just
Sure.
worry about a couple things. Well, first off, by the way, I want to say I'm not calling out anybody, like especially Kelsey, on her opinion on that. I think she's right. What she was trying to say about the drafting portion of it was that was like a big sticking point with the LCS for people to
Okay.
watch them, and now that's going to be gone. So it seems like it was potentially planned even ahead of time. Um, with the whole it being in the rule book at the beginning of the year thing, right? So, or maybe it was added. I couldn't really tell if this was I don't know, something. But right,
Yeah,
but like
it was in there and now it's not.
yeah,
I just don't we
exactly.
don't know
We don't know
exactly
when
what
it
that
got
was, but
added,
yeah,
to be
yeah,
clear. But yeah,
yeah.
so it's like, how do I put this? So my concern is, and it's good and bad, right? There's pros and cons. The biggest pro is yes, we're getting more games. Well, we're not getting more games. Actually, we will. We're pretty much guaranteed to at least get one more game, right? Somebody will go to a third game, uh, at least once this split. But how are they? Because they're doing best ofs. I just thought about this. Like, if a team just 2-0s everybody, is it just going to be purely based on how many wins you have in terms of the standings? Right? Because, like, if you're not playing the same
Yeah.
amount of games, then it just has to be based on that, which I think in itself is kind of dumb. And also, to be fair, you also have to be on that day against that specific opponent, right? Like, you don't get another
Hmm.
chance against them, which is fine, I think, especially if the league was a little bit bigger. But since there are only 8 teams, if Cloud9 just catches 100 Thieves on a bad day and just sweeps them 2-0, or, Immortals has, that cheese game plan and they win a game or whatever, like, I guess it's still better than best of ones. I don't know. It's
If
really
if they have a
annoying.
cheese plan and they win a game, then that team has the right to ban that cheese pick and win the best of three still. Like I
I
get what you're
guess
saying.
so. Yeah,
It's not a full solution for sure. And also like you said, it's still it's a single round robin. It's not perfect, like you said, but at least like that team that has an off day that has two chances to have an off day. Like you had two off games in a row. Like sorry, like it's. I wish it was. I think if it was the best of three double round robin, we'd be very happy.
yes.
But yeah, like you said, that's because yeah. I mean, it really is. I think it's like there's 8 teams, right? I think it's going to be 7 matches. So, it's going to be our first place team is going to be like 7-0 or 5-2 or 6-1 or something like that. It's right because it's gonna there won't be 14 recorded games. There'll be a game score. but like the
Well,
match
I
score
think
will
it'll
be
just be max
out of
amount of
7.
wins. So like your max amount of wins is 14, right? So because no matter what, even if you lose one game, you can still technically go 14-7, right? So I think it's going to be based off of win percentage. I'd have to think.
I thought that well, it's best of 3 matches, not just like right. So like
I
it
don't
would be
think
like
I I can't imagine that would be the case, right? Because
why
back in
why
the
not?
day, it used to be because back in the day when they had best of threes, it was based on how many wins and losses you had, not based on what your series record was. So I thought they'd just be
No, it
doing
wasn't.
that. No, it wasn't based on
No, it
series.
wasn't. Yeah, it was, and then the seeding was based on overall game score. Like so, like you would have your record, but then like the seeding was like
I'm
the
checking this. I'm curious now.
yeah
I feel like you would
yeah
know
yeah. Go ahead.
better than me, but I'm. Let me see. 2017 summer. Um.
Like they tracked both, but I think it was still like match 1-2-0 or
Yeah,
two
I guess
one.
you're right. So I guess it was based on series score, but then they would. No. Yeah, I don't know. This is weird because like in 2017, CLG and Cloud9 both went 12-6, but CLG got the 3 seed at 27-19 and Cloud9 got the 4 seed at 28-17. How does that work? Maybe there was a
So
tiebreaker.
this was actually a big controversy. I actually remember this. I think it might have been, I can't remember for sure, but I think it was Monte Cristo who called it out, was that CLG beat Cloud9 that split.
Oh, so
And
their
so
head-to-head
even and
record was better.
they valued head to head over game score in a best of
And
format, which I
see,
don't
and
think is
that's where
correct.
I think I'm okay with that if they're going to do it by series. Then cuz like that's why to me it should be based on the amount of games and your win percentage. That makes more sense to me than series. But I don't know. I mean, it's so we just don't know enough yet, honestly. And to be clear, this is not 100% confirmed, right? Like the LCS hasn't come out. There's still time to change all of this, right? We still have almost 2 months, I think, until the LCS is back and playing again.
We got a
So
while. Yeah.
they can still change all this, but like, it just needs to be series, man. Now I'm thinking about it. I still like best of threes. I would love series. I just want more games. I think more games is just the most important part of it. But
I think you're asking for a 3-game
yeah,
series,
that's what
and
I'm
you're wondering
saying.
whether it's a 3-game series or a best of 3 match, which are 2 different things, right? A 3-game
Yeah.
series, you play the same team 3 times, and then you come away with your wins and losses, and that contributes to the overall record. A best of 3 match, it's that's regardless of the record. Did you win or did you lose? It's 1-0, 2-0, and then game score of individual games comes into play for those tiebreaker things, and that the that was actually the criticism that the LCS got that year, was that head to head makes sense when you have to use that as your tiebreaker thing in a best of one, but when you actually have game score factors where not all your matches are one game, that should be the second most important thing. Because if we're talking about playoffs, I think it's more important. The thing that's more valued is how you played overall to the rest of the league relative to just like you said, one match on the day. So I hope that if we do, I don't think we're going to do 3-game series because I think that lends itself to one, guaranteed longer days, which is an albeit more consistent broadcast, but something that the LCS isn't trying to do. Two, I don't know if teams want it. Like, I don't know if like FlyQuest is gonna want to play a third game against Immortals after beating them twice. They might just want to go home. And I understand like pushing back on that. Like, I'm not saying that that's like a completely correct stance or anything, but that plus then also the stakes are lower. It's like, well, we're seeing 3 games no matter what, which is some value. But the other thing is like, oh man, what's gonna happen? Like, I think they're gonna try to still build into the daily hype, especially when it's like they're gonna build this as like the one time we see these teams play. Like that's gonna be played up a lot in the broadcast of how like they're gonna take the negatives of this and spin them, which is what you kind of have, which is no disrespect to the people on camera. That's how this works, right?
Yeah. No, you
It's the
have to do it
LCS
that way.
cage match, the LCS cage match effect all over again.
God, yeah.
Um,
That was so
yeah,
bad.
yeah. So that's I think it's likely it's going to be because they've been using the phrase best of 3, which is best of, which
No,
means the
you're
most
right.
of, which means really 2 wins. 3-game series a la Major League Baseball or like, you know, which I wouldn't be opposed to, I don't think is going to be in the cards just because of how committed the LCS is to efficiency and quickness. They don't want to play unnecessary games, especially like I don't know, maybe a third game of Dignitas versus Immortals isn't going to help the viewership numbers. That's more total overall time of watching two teams nobody watches. I'm not like that. Those are just the facts.
I know.
And
Oh, it's
so
so.
I think that I'm with you. I understand where you're coming from. I don't think it's likely unless they change. It's still possible. I mean, this is like I said, this is all speculative. I truly don't. Travis doesn't really report on stuff unless he knows he's for sure right in the past, at least. So like he's not been wrong really. Very. I think maybe a few times he did like details different, but like it's when he reports something, which isn't all the time, it's usually correct, especially when it has to do with the LCS format changes. So uh, if we're going off of the language that we already have, then it almost certainly is best of 3 matches. But like you said, that could change. They could decide, especially if the idea is like, well, we need to guarantee more games. Because like you said, in a weird world where every single best of 3 ends in a 2-0, teams played the same amount of games, right?
It's very
Um,
unlikely, to be clear.
so almost impossible, but
Yeah.
I get your concern of like the value of yeah, the matchup of the day might be more hype with those stakes of like who wins the match, but also if you're looking at the long-term value of the region playing the most amount of games, which is what we've talked about a lot. While the best of 3 format is better competitively in general, the number of games for these teams to develop. We talked about this last time, Team Liquid got to play 19 games in playoffs. It's one of the there's been a lot of times where the strongest team in playoffs was the team that got to play the most games. Like,
Hmm.
and so I do think I'm not trying to basically say that your points are invalid. I
No.
just more so mean I don't think it's likely that we go to that type of format
Well, to
based on what we know
to be clear, I may just be a curmudgeon at this point.
now.
I don't know how else to put it. Like, I just I am, to be very abundantly clear, I'm very happy that we're getting best of threes. I really thought it was going to be double round robin, and I think that's where I'm struggling with it. It's just we need more games.
Mm,
We have to have more games to be a better region, and it's gonna sound bad, but like I wish I knew how much of an effect the sponsors and stuff have on this. To be honest with you, and just like what the costs of running it really are, because obviously they're never going to give us those numbers, and that's totally fair and fine. But um it's like this region is in such a bad position because of a lot of really bad consecutive choices, right? That has
mm.
now led it to being going from one of the most hyped leagues in the world to being one that is on life support. And it just feels to me like they are constantly making short sighted and short term decisions and band aids when the wound is like the size of a grapefruit or something. It's like they got a whole section of their stomach is out and they're trying to put band aids over it. And I'm just struggling to understand because they keep saying, well, we want to be the entertainment. We want to be the entertainment, blah, blah, blah. That's great, except there's no fucking entertainment anymore. That's gone, right? It's literally just the games at this point. And if that's the case, and they're worried about viewership, we've talked about this, winning cures all. Games, like if your base, because like I think maybe it was Travis or somebody said something about like that I watched or read was like, well, like, I don't know how much this helps the casual fan. What casual fans? Who is still casually watching the LCS at this point? It is only mostly, in my opinion, people who already loved the LCS and are continuing to watch it. So, sure, maybe the viewership will go down. That is what it is for the numbers. Like if they want the LCS to survive truly and to find a way to thrive, they need to cut off all the bullshit and actually like understand that they need to make this region better, like literally better, because the reason why the LCK and the LPL, yes, their fan bases are a lot more fanatical, but it's also because they're winning. Do you think the LCK would be would have as many followers, even like worldwide, if they weren't winning worlds or had a team in the final, in the semifinals every single year? Like, no, they wouldn't. If the LCS had two
Yeah.
teams in semifinals of worlds every year, you damn well better bet that people in Korea and people in China and people in Europe are going to start tuning into their broadcasts more because they're the best in the world, right? And while you can say, hey, they spend 12 hours a day practicing, whatever, that's true. But even they have said in interviews, the best practice truly is in games against good players in team situations. Individually, you can be as good as you want. But if you come over from, Korea and play in the LCS, the reason why they don't necessarily always just pop off is because the team play itself is not great. Maybe the individual players are okay, but the team play is not great. And we've seen it time and time
Mhm.
again in League of Legends. And the best way to make the teams better is to have them play more games. So I'm almost at the point where it's like they need to just kind of accept what the viewership numbers are and accept the lengths of the broadcasts and just say, fuck it. We need to make this region better. We need to have more games. That's what I truly believe. Now, again, this is all encompassing and understanding that I'm very happy that we are making this first stride. But the fact that it's not double round robin because they are afraid to run, potentially, understandably, honestly, 12 games in a day, that is what it is. I understand that. I honestly think they just go Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then you don't have to worry about it. It's basically what you do on
Yeah.
Super Weeks anyways, and at this point, Super Weeks are 2 out of the 6 weeks that we're playing at this point. So what the hell is the difference? Like,
Yeah, I think it's probably, I mean, I think if you asked like in a vacuum, like Mark Z or anybody that like they'd probably agree with you. I'm sure that this has to do with like how the money feels about it, right?
yeah,
Ultimately, right now, the LCS isn't a profitable, from what we know, a very profitable league, and that'd be essentially doubling the operating costs.
yeah.
And and that's before you get into the fact that like, oh, having viewership for the like lower viewership for these games like is going to tank our overall numbers. Like, there's so many things that people are looking at outside of the competitive integrity, which is uh unfortunate, but a reality, which is why I think people can be frustrated sometimes when Riot's like, we put competitive integrity above everything. Because I do think they try. I do
But
think
but
everybody
but I
wants
want
to,
to
but I think that it's not always the case,
I
right?
want to
I
jump
think
in
that
real
that's
quick on this point though, dude.
yeah, sure, yeah, please.
The problem with that argument is that like nothing that they do with that mindset currently, this league is just going to slowly die and bleed out. That's my point. Is at some
Hmm.
point you have to just try to cauterize the bleed at where it's at, cauterize the wound, and accept where you are. You lost a leg, right? And the only way you're gonna be able to pay for a prosthetic one is if you have, a better product, right? A better thing. So it's like you're not wrong. That is the arguments, and I know that. I want to be clear to people. I know that.
Okay, I'm sorry. So you're saying, regardless of that, you're saying, okay, tough shit. This still needs to. It's only going
Because
to get
unless if they're
worse if
just
it
gonna,
doesn't stop now.
yeah, and
Okay,
either that or they
that's
just get
fair.
rid
That's
of the
fair.
LCS. Like seriously, like what
Yeah,
is what
okay.
is the point in having it at that point if it's just gonna continue to bleed money? Because it will not make more money unless something else is done. And we have seen the product, the players themselves have even said things have gotten worse since they stopped playing so many games. It is almost abundantly apparent if you look at world level results, MSI, Worlds. We have not done shit at them since we got rid of best of threes. I think it was like the first year after was the last year that Team Liquid did anything. That was that double lift year. And I think that
Well,
was maybe a year or maybe
yeah.
two after they had gotten rid of best of threes. And since then, what the two leagues that do not have it are the two leagues that never perform at Worlds. And luckily, European fans are just a lot more fanatical. So you just have to accept with where you're at, I feel like, with the LCS and just be like, hey, you know what? If we want to get more fans, we got to put out a better product. Because that's what's losing people. People are not watching because the teams aren't good at Worlds. Like I ask my friends all the time. I have people who play League of Legends 10 times more than I do. And they say, I'm not interested in watching it because the NA teams are bad, one. And two, because even if I start liking a player, they're on a new team every split and it doesn't matter. And it's like if you have those two things that you like know are true, and I'm speaking anecdotally, obviously, from my own experiences, but I've also asked random people at LCS events. And I just don't see their vision, and so far to me at least, what they have been trying to do is not working.
Mhm. I think that I don't disagree with you at all. I think I've had this conversation with people before who are on the pro best of one side.
Yeah.
Um, and when I bring up the level of gameplay, uh, there is a a unfortunate trend that I think is more coincidental than anything else. But if you actually look at all of North America's best international performances, they're in best of one seasons, every single one of them.
The Cloud9 season was in a best of 3 season, I'm pretty
28,
sure.
that's 2018. They went back to best of one for franchising.
Like I said, it was one. It
And
was like
then
the year after, I think.
Team Liquid 2019, when they went to MSI finals after beating IG, that was also best of one. CLG 2016. That's what bothers me is that people will be like, well, we actually never got better as a region in best of three. I'm like, yeah, like maybe not like one year, but it's like that's why I think last time we talked about this at length. I know we talked about this almost every episode, but when we talked about it at length, I was saying the argument of, oh, it doesn't make the region like it doesn't make the region worse to be the argument. Not that it definitively makes the region better. It's like that's just a prerequisite. Yeah, like if people were like, oh, the best NA teams came from best of one, best of one format seasons, and like technically they're right, but I don't think that's an argument in favor of best of ones by any means, but that is like oftentimes a response that I get, right? That Cloud9 team was a best of one. That was 2018, the first franchised LCS year. That was best of ones. Team Liquid Double Lift, MSI run to
It's
finals.
2019.
Even
Yeah.
G2 in 2019 in the LEC. That was best of ones also. So our best Western teams actually weren't formed in the best of three format, and you hear that as a counterpoint a lot, which I consider to be results based analysis. And I think ultimately our teams would still be better and we'd have more of these teams in best of threes. And that these teams persevered, one, in spite of the format, and two, there were a lot of factors on the day that matter. I mean, like, Cloud9's success had nothing to do with their summer. They were ninth place or 10th place in summer. They didn't even make playoffs. So, like, I do agree that it's not like gonna be an immediate one for one fix. And there are arguments against it, but that like there's no way more games hurts. You know, there's just no way. There's no way more games hurts. Uh, how much it helps, it's gonna be hard to say. I think we would need to like see some results. We need to and but I think people are just like, well, we did that for a year and a half, and it didn't really do much for us, in the ways that people hoped. And then viewership is down and blah 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 blah. So it's definitely a complicated issue, but I definitely am in agreement with you, and especially when if Riot is like we're putting competitive integrity above all else. Like if you gotta say that, you gotta back that up. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, it's I definitely get where you're coming from. I just wish that we had more results of like remember that year we had best of threes and that team was sick nasty because we actually did have those teams. People forget how good Cloud9 like.
And
Yes,
those
they
TSM
finished
teams were
only
so good heading into it. They just
and
always underperformed.
internationally, but at Cloud9 performed well
Yeah.
international. Not great, but like eighth, like top eight finishes consistently. And like people forget, like we're like one good team fight against Team WE away from talking about Cloud9 getting top four at Worlds back to back. Like that was a
Mm-hmm.
close series. I'm not, and they lost. Like that happened. But what I'm saying is like we also like you could argue that that team was actually better than the 2018 C9 team. 2018 C9 team just figured things out at the right time against the worst international Korean teams in history,
Yeah.
right? So like, there's so many factors of like, and you could argue then well, best three won't help. It's like, well, maybe it won't, but like, will it hurt? No, it can't not be better than the best of ones in any capacity. And like you said, I'm glad that you factor like you're like, yeah, I'm aware that like there's like problems with like, the finances of it or like people are worried about the metrics, but I guess what you're saying is like if we don't do a drastic change, like you said, cauterize the wound. It's like it's just going to be a slow bleed and nothing's going to change. Because you're right, I mean, there's not like a lot of new fans coming to LCS, and um, I think Valorant as a whole is a more popular game in North America. But I can't. I think it's foolish to say that that's the only reason those stands are filled up for VCT Americas every weekend. It's like, yeah, the games were popular, but it's also that the American teams are good. Americas
They're
is the
very
best
good.
region in the world at Valorant
Hmm.
right now. So like you said, winning does fix everything, and I am of the opinion that if we do more best of threes, we'll win more games. So I hope that this is enough of a change with just the single round robin. I'm with you that I'd prefer it to be a double, but I also see they might be trying, because that's what single round robin is what Valorant is as well, and maybe I feel like they are trying to now. They're now in a place where they built the blueprint off of the Valorant ecosystem from League, but like
Hmm.
with everything fixed, and now they're like kind of going back and reapplying, like, oh, this works better this way for Valorant. Let's go back. Like I think probably next year, if they haven't already even announced this, I could be wrong, but like I think we'll see more assimilation of like the Americas as a region as a whole.
Yeah,
I
I
think that
think
might
that
be
that's
a
gonna
a
happen
viable
too.
future for the LCS. Like let's heavily benefit off of the Brazilian esports scene
Oh,
right
for
now
sure.
to save the carcass that is North American League of
That's
Legends
how they're gonna get
interest.
back. I
So
bet you that's how they're gonna get back to 10 teams. I was actually gonna say. So I will say I will bite my tongue on the results based stuff. I've been wrong on that. I will fully admit it. I think I got the years crisscrossed. I thought it was the year before, like for both of
I
them.
wish you were right.
I do
'Cause I get
too.
so mad when people say that, but they're correct. Like if we're talking about
Yeah.
scoreboards, it's like, damn, you're right. Like
Yeah.
we need to have a team who did really well in one of those years.
Well,
But
and maybe this will
maybe
be
maybe
it.
it's this
Maybe
year.
this will be this
Maybe it's
year.
this year.
Yeah, right. We can only
Maybe it's
hope.
this year.
Yeah. So I'll bite my tongue on that one. I will fully admit I'm wrong on that, but I still have the belief that more games equals better. And I will say Valorant 2 has shown
Yeah.
that they can make those changes. And I think there's a reason why I think our new um like head of esports and stuff is I believe he's from Brazil, if I remember correctly. They announced it
Yep.
at the summer finals last year. So I fully
I don't remember if he does CB LOL or if he might do LATAM.
he was
I don't
CB LOL
remember.
last year, I'm pretty sure, or before he
Okay,
came in.
okay,
I'm
okay.
almost certain. But the point is I'm about 90% sure that I'm almost wondering if there's a chance that they're going to move operations to Texas so that then the South American teams can more easily get to and fans can more easily get to games. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying I've heard anything, but I do think that the way to stem to truly cauterize the wounds would be to get the Brazilian fans in. If they add Brazilian teams into the LCS, like if you put freaking Loud in the LCS with actually good, LCS players and some Brazilian players mixed in, because like that's the one thing I think that's the problem is generally Brazilian players have not been as good as North American players, um, and so I think maybe that's been what's hurt them. But I think also the fans in Brazil more just are connected to the team than they are the players potentially, which is what we need in the LCS, honestly.
For
So
sure. And you could and also I think like you could argue like those CB LOL players and teams would benefit from playing higher levels of competition, right? Like
mhm.
there's benefits for both. I mean, look, the Carmine Corp's the worst team in the LEC. They've been an absolute dumpster fire since they got the spot, and they
Yeah,
still like have the most fans and the most viewers of every game,
yeah,
right?
it's
Like so,
pretty
like
crazy.
they're
Yeah.
yeah, there's some value there. Like if you want to look at like oh wow, this is what an actual fan base looks like. Like people lose their minds for Loud's League of Legends team every year, and they're one of the better teams in Brazil, but Brazil hasn't really done anything crazy in League of Legends. Like they're elite in Valorant, but yeah, I mean, I think that the fandom doesn't change based on that.
Oh boy,
So I do think there's a lot of value to that.
I just had a horrible, awful, great idea. Do you want
What's
to hear
that?
it?
Yeah.
So there was a certain team that was expanding their operations into Brazil over the last couple years. Their name was TSM.
Okay. Yeah.
What if I can't believe I'm going to say this? What if TSM re-enters as a Brazilian team, and that's the way we get up to 10 teams? Is Loud and TSM? Well, actually, probably, and I would assume at least one other LCS team would sell their spot to a Brazilian team, or or merge with them and take the name. And what if that's the way we do it, man? You get 3 Brazilian teams, one of them being TSM. You get them back in the fold. Oh, that's a mad scientist idea, but that's how you do it. I mean,
Hey, I mean,
the viewership has dropped since TSM was bad. Like that
yeah.
is an actual correlation. And it's like, imagine you bring the triumphant return of TSM back, right? Totally rebranded with North American fans and Brazilian fans. Then you bring in Loud and whatever other, I know there are better or other really good Brazilian teams, but I'm just not remembering them off the top of my head. And you bring one other big brand over. I bet you the LCS gets a lot better real fast with that. I think that they should do that,
Yeah,
dude.
we'll have to
Oh.
see if TSM's still in operations then. I don't even know if they have enough employees to form a League of Legends team right now, let alone
They
players.
don't. They don't. But you know what I'm trying to say is like that would
No, I
be
get you. I get you.
like I mean think about it. Like that would revive the LCS in such a very serious way, because yeah, and then Brazilian teams can finally be like, "Ha, we got a major region type benefit. We don't have to do play-ins anymore or anything like that." Maybe Loud is the best team in the LCS in 2025, and they just get an automatic bid. Like, can you imagine how much the fans would love that, dude? Oh my god. I'm concocting ideas. I know this is best of threes, and Nick and I both got to hop off here in a few minutes, but I just was like, I was thinking of that while you were talking. I was like, dude, you're right. Like that. Do you know what that like makes me feel better about this current best of 3 format? To be honest with you, we always can go to Brazil.
Yeah, Brazil will save us, obviously.
Oh my god,
There's
it's
nothing.
so bad, but it's
There's
probably true.
nothing more. Okay, there's nothing more American than farming the resources of other countries and taking credit for it. Okay, like that is what we do. So
I
I
mean,
mean, uh, it's gonna be great.
why not? I mean,
I don't
seriously
know.
though. And
I
then
don't
like you
know.
have these
But
best of threes. You can. I would feel better if there were 10 teams in this one round robin instead of 8 as well.
single round robin with 8 teams is rough. I get you.
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
doesn't like because then when I started covering Valorant last year, I'm like, oh wow, single round robin, 10 teams. I'm like after the season, I'm like, okay, that was fine. 8 teams, it's like, oh man, like it's just weird to think of like and our undefeated team at 7-0. It's like, oh my god.
No, seriously. I mean, I think. Look, I'm feeling better. I think I was maybe just, I was going through a sad spell there in the middle of this episode, but I do. There are
Well,
other ways because I really thought I was like, man, this is the only way that they can fix this is more games. I still believe that more games is the best way. These best of threes guarantees us more games. I will say, guarantees. I will put it down there right now. I did this on my Reds podcast. If none of the teams play a third game, this entire split, I will drink something out of a shoe. Okay? I'm just going to put it out there right now. They will. So we will at least get one more game, and I will be happy. I'm
yeah. I
disappointed.
mean, you're so sure it's gonna happen that I think you're gonna drink Everclear out of a shoe if it happens, right?
Oh boy.
Because you're so
Okay.
confident. You're
Fine.
so confident that it won't happen.
I guess I'm going to get drunk
That
real damn fast on that, but
no, all you need to have is one team take a 3-game
Dude,
series.
watch.
It's
I'm going to
fine.
be sitting there like texting you during the first week, and it's going to be all 2-0s. I'm like, Nick, this is bad. This is
What
bad. My
what
stress
has
levels
happened?
are going through
Yeah,
the roof right now.
the monkey paw curls. Yeah.
Can you
No,
seriously? Can
you'll
you
be
imagine
fine.
that? Oh my god, that would be a nightmare
There's not a
scenario for the LCS just as much as it would be for me. So
Yeah. Fortunately, we don't have good enough teams to do that. I think we're gonna like. I think like if there's one thing that's good or bad, depending on how you view it about our league, is that there's a lot of parity. Like I actually expect there to be
yeah,
like more best 3-game series
I think so
than
too.
2-0s.
I think so too.
So no Everclear out of the shoe for you most likely, but a man can
We'll
dream.
see.
A man can dream.
You guys heard this. Nick wants me to drink Everclear. I don't even know if it's legal in Ohio. I think I have to go to Indiana to get it. So
Is it? That's so
because I
funny.
remember in college that was the we if we were getting Everclear, we like I lived on the Indiana Ohio border,
Oh
so
my
I'd have to
gosh.
go over, and like we also couldn't have kegs, so we'd have to go to Indiana to go get kegs and Everclear. So I don't know if that's still the case or not, but that was the
That's
way
intense, man.
a decade ago. I'm aging myself very quickly here, but that's all right. So we have had our discussion of best of threes, potentially Brazil saving the LCS at one point, maybe next year. This is good overall. This is good. That's my final thought on this. Is that it is good. Nick, do you have any final thoughts on this?
Best of three or other final thoughts? Just
Any,
three only.
any. Send the people off with something.
Uh, C9 is no better, potentially worse with Thanatos over Fudge if Reaper doesn't put this team together. I think Thanatos is a better player, but I don't think this does anything for them. Strong individual players aren't the issue. You can say that Fudge was one of the probably the weakest point, but this is going to be Reaper's mess to clean up. Or I'm sorry, that's a negative way. But this is going to be Reaper's team to lead to the promised land because this could very much be the same story as last summer, and I hope it's not because I'm excited to see Thanatos play because I do think he's sick, nasty individually, and that'll be fun.
I agree with you completely. We will talk about that next week, I believe. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I had to get a
next week is
little
going to
thing in
be
there.
the. I believe, yeah, next week will be our preview for MSI. So we will talk a little bit about. We will
Ooh.
finally know. I think CB Lowell is actually the last team that has to get a team in this coming weekend. So we will know by Monday who's going to be or who all the teams are going to be for MSI. So we will be able to discuss that a little bit more seriously. I think there will also be a draw at some point next week. So
So I'm sorry, it's not the CBL, it's LPL is the
is it?
last
Why did I think
because
I saw some? Oh, it's going to be
the
during the
draw
LPL.
show happens during it's going to be right after the LPL
That makes
Spring
sense,
Finals. So
considering
I
it's
think you're
going to
right.
be
I
in
think it's
China.
Brazil, and then I think Brazil's like the day before, or the night before, and like
Is
China.
it
I
okay?
think
I
are the
just
last two.
remembered seeing that it was like
Um,
CB Lowell hadn't crowned their champion yet. I think it was that we know who the teams are going to be for the LPL, but we don't know who the 1 or 2 seed is going to be. Maybe that's what it was.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
okay, that makes sense. But next week we will do a dive on who FlyQuest and who Team Liquid will be playing. We'll take a look at how that's going to look, and we'll preview it to set up for what should be a very interesting MSI for our LCS representatives. But we do appreciate all of you who have been watching. Make sure to like and make sure to subscribe if you have not already done so. A lot of other great content coming out on the Game House. Also, make sure and go check out Nick's content. He's doing great stuff. He's freaking awesome, and he's a great Twitter follow at an absolute minimum. So please go do that. And we're really excited to talk more about this. And we still have plenty of time before between MSI and summer for changes to be made for teams and everything like that. So we will talk a little bit about Thanatos and him coming over to the LCS at some point as well. So yeah, make sure you let us know in the comments below what you guys think of best of threes. And with that, we'll catch you guys on the next one.